Hey everybody, it's Bust with Busted Strategies number 56. Continuing on with our Crimson Vow drafts. Ready to go. So yeah, we did just finish up our nice little weekend of streaming. Not super successful weekend in terms of streaming. Well, I guess in wins. I'm starting to get like much more comfortable with the format. I feel like we're going to have a lot more success next weekend on the streams. But yeah, it was like I had like a 40% win rate over the weekend or something. It was pretty bad. But I'm getting much more comfortable with this format. I think we're going to have a pretty good week here. I think we'll be into Mythic before the next weekend stream. I don't want to call my shot or anything, but I'm pretty sure we'll be there now that I've got like a much better grasp on the format. I was hoping to be there for the stream on the previous weekend, but didn't. The Wizards and their inability to share information in a useful way had me thinking Crimson Vow wasn't out until next weekend. But did I just let that whole queue run through without pushing the button? Was it me this time? I definitely pushed it. There we go. I pushed it this time. But yeah, if you're looking to see what we did on Twitch, the Twitch VODs are of course still out there. And then we'll definitely be there. We'll be there Friday, Saturday, and Sunday this week if you're looking to follow along in those terms. But let's see. Back to the draft here. What is old Runo Stromkirk? I don't think this is a particularly interesting one. I mean, he's a 1/4 flying, which is always a very serviceable horned turtle. But when he enters the battlefield, put up to one target creature card from your graveyard on top of your deck. Okay. And then at the beginning of your upkeep, look at the top card of your library. You can reveal it. If an expensive boy was revealed this way, then you flip him into this thing that puts Leviathans and things on the board. I'm not real interested in this. The rest of the pack, not that great though. This is a very like black heavy pack. I think I would rather just have the Markov Purifier than the Stormkirk, but let's at least give him a shot. We can keep in our head that we need to keep, place a little bit higher value on a 6-cost unit as opposed to say like a 5. But there's no other real like kind of build around cards here. There was the blue black or the white black one, but I don't think we're missing out on too much letting that go. Okay, so with this pack here, I'm looking at the Gift of Fangs. What I've really kind of run into with this set is that the removal is definitely not as abundant as it was in the previous one, and so things like Gift of Fangs have to get pushed up a bit in value, and then the -13/-13 one is really really stellar. And so I'm looking towards the Gift of Fangs. Otherwise, this does seem to be a decent white-based pack with the Griff Rider, but what I'm hoping here is we can take the Gift of Fangs and then perhaps wheel a Gluttonous Guest. I don't think we'll wheel the Edgar's Awakening, but either the Midnight or the Gluttonous Guest or the Desperate Farmer would be okay. Then, as it stands, if we're looking to draft blue-black, those would be decent wheels. Okay, so again, we have another Gift of Fangs. More than happy to pick that up. I'm kind of curious, though, if I would rather just have like a Syncopate. Kind of the way I felt was, at least initially, was like there's a bunch of counter spells in the format. There's like the Syncopate. There's the one that makes the blood tokens. There's the uncommon one with that kind of aligns with Disturb. But then it's like I never get the counter spells as late as I want, and so can be slightly awkward, but I think we're fine with another Gift of Fangs. I don't really want to say, hey, I'm getting locked into Exploit because I have Runo Stromkirk, which actually does absolutely nothing towards the Exploit deck. But I think the double Gift of Fangs start is powerful enough in the event that we don't even play blue. Okay, well, the blue cards keep rolling around. And so this is the where I haven't quite figured it out in Limited. Is like when we called this the hapless aristocrat thing with the Slayers decks in Expedition, as to where we used to just like run out and take all the hapless aristocrats and all the sacrificable cards because the things that kill off your own units are just like super terrible if you don't have them, and so we would just kind of let what would be Exploit and Runeterra just fall to us later, but go out of our way to pick up the Throng and the Specimens just to make sure that we have those cards. I'm not quite sure where I stand on it in this format as to kind of chasing those things down, But I am going to go ahead and start with the sacrificable unit and the Wretched Throng. Because we could have looked, I guess, to the specimen to really kind of lock us into black, but it's not going to be that great in any of the other decks, anyways. I guess it plays fine in green black with the self mill. If you mill away the specimen, you can just bring it back later. But I don't want to play green black. It seems like one of the weaker decks in the format. Okay, so now we are going to have to kind of like take a peek at white. White does seem to be pretty open here. And I'm looking just towards the Traveling Minister now. This plays fantastically in any of the white-based decks, whether or not we're playing blue-white Disturb, if we're playing the life gain deck, or if we're playing Training. He plays pretty well everywhere. And so I'm going to go ahead and just take a peek at white, since it does appear to be open, and see if we don't end up switching to, say, like white-black or something. Okay, well, I think we can just move in with the Adamant Will. It kind of feels like we're moving towards white. The black cards here. Vampire's Kiss is fine, but it doesn't... oh, no, this is not the card draw one. This one's just not very good. But like, there's been no indicator of red being open. Black doesn't seem to be really happening. Adamant Will, I think, is probably a little bit weaker, or a little bit weaker than the Weaver of Blossoms, but I'm not going to be playing green here, it seems, and so I think that was a nice pickup. And ooh, this is a very late Lantern Bearer. Maybe we do kind of push our way over into blue-white. I'm not amped about Vampire Slayers. There is the Dreadlight Monstrosity, which would work with Runo Stromkirk, but I think I want to see how this blue-white plays out here. I do really like Selhoff and Tumor and blue-white in the Disturb deck. Jesus, just there's also an 8th pick of Braid in here. It's insanity. But the Selhoff and Tumor is going to be good regardless of where this deck lands. I kind of feel like we're pushing over towards blue-white. And the way I really like these things happening with blue-white is being able to, say, play the Lantern Bearer early, or just, say, discard it to the Entomber. And then you only are just kind of like discarding half of a card. But we'll see. We'll see how these play out. Repository Scab will be fine either way. Okay. I haven't been a huge fan of Wanderlit Spirit. I thought I was going to like this one a little bit more, but it seems like at least the blue half of this is open. Second Repository Scab. Scattered Thoughts is extremely late. Okay. Okay. So that feels good, at least. So I like where we're at in these terms. It seems like blue, very open. Again, I'm not opposed to playing blue-black or blue-white. We have, some of the pieces for the blue-black deck. We have the one Wretched Throng. We have the 2 Repository Scabs. We have the 2 Gift of the Fangs. White, we aren't really, locked into very many white things here, just the Traveling Minister and the Adamant Will. But it did feel like white was actually open there. Outside of that, like, really weird and late, what was it called? A Braid. I think white was looking okay. Okay, so how are we going to handle this one? I was hoping life would just be easy and we would get a pretty serviceable blue card, but we're going to have to come out here and make a decision. And I just kind of like leaning more towards us being in a black deck at this point, and taking the Doomed Dissenter. He's, when it comes down to it, the Kindly Ancestor, I feel like, is a white-black card. With the lifelink ability, you can fit them into the blue-white Disturb deck, but it's one of the weaker options that you can have in there. It really helps you win a race, throwing the Disturb, the lifelink enchantment on a flyer or something, but I think that we're just going to land in black. This was I was like scanning the pack, and I was like, oh shit, I'm going to have to take that back. There's Storm Chaser Drake, which is really sick in blue-white. There's the Drogskull Infantry, and then I was like, oh, there's all these blue cards down here, then there's Bleed Dry at the bottom. So we're just going to pick up the Bleed Dry here. Okay, so I think it's safe to say that we're just going to play blue-black at this point. I'm glad that we kind of left our options open in terms of white cards. I just don't think that that's where we're going to be at the end of the day. So, okay, so let's see where we're at. Let's get our removal split off just a little bit. Scabs, the Scattered Thoughts, the Bleed Dries. Okay, and so I feel like it's a little early to be taking Dreadlight Monstrosities, I'd kind of like to just pick up another sacrificable card. And so, I mean, the Persistent Specimen is fine. It feels like so early to have to be taking one of these things. But I'm hoping that we can wheel something like Dreadlight Monstrosity. I don't think we should go like out of our way to try to flip this Runo, but we have some potential to try and do that. I was trying to think. It's a bit unfortunate in terms of the expensive disturb or the expensive exploit costs 5. Right? There's the one that makes the opponent sacrifice a unit, and then there's the one that revenges the drowns a unit. Both of those cost 5 and don't combo with Runo. But nonetheless, Archghoul of Thraben, fantastic in this style of deck. We don't like our base creatures aren't really zombies. The Throng and the Selhoff and Tumor are, but the Dissenter kind of flips into a zombie token. Very easy to be sacrificing off zombies if we want to, and this card advantage engine is quite strong. So hopefully we'll get to wheel some of these like blue flyers or a blood fountain or something. But I think the Archghoul is exactly where we want to be. Hey man, the Brine Comber, quite late. I think we're done considering our ability to to be a blue white deck. So we're gonna take the Diver Scab, but it feels late. Feels very late there. Okay, well the good boys continue on. Interesting. I'm gonna take the Stitched Assistant here. I don't know what the deal with Digraph Scavenger is. It was like I went and looked at the top cards on 17 lands, and if you like sort by like win percentage in game played, it's like Digraph Scavenger is number 2. It's very strange to me. The Bleed Dry was the best common in the set in terms of win rate, and then Digraph Scavenger was second. I don't know if that just had to do with like black being good in those terms, like since like Bleed Dry is such a high powered common, and the vampire thing being so heavy that that dude is just kind of filler and makes the cut a lot of times, but a very high win rate. Here, Wretched Throng, fine. This is what we're going to kind of prefer as our sacrifice target. Okay, another Stitched Assistant. Looks quite good. Gives us the ways to hit some card advantage here without having to deal with things other than Scattered Thoughts. So at this point, we need to pick up some like counter spells. I would love to find something to just be doing on our opponent's turn, and I would like to find something to win the game with, whether or not that's the 5/4 exploit or just some kind of big boy. I find it to be kind of hard to win the game with a lot of these dudes that we have. So we'll just take the Scab here. I really want to like aim for the head to be good. I don't know if I just like ran into a bad series of games, but I have not had any success with aim for the head in this format. I'm gonna have to kind of like revisit it later. It kind of felt like you should be able to incidentally hit a zombie on occasion, and it just feels like a mind rot with upside. But I was definitely struggling with that one to be any good. Here there is another Stitched Assistant, but we got to get some kind of interactivity here. And so I'm going to pick up the Alchemist Retrieval. Bounce spells aren't where we really want to be with this deck, but I want to have a bit of something. I'm going to take the Spirit here. I don't think we ever play 2 Scabs. I don't think we play the Spirit ever either, but, well, I guess we found ourselves an additional Scab either way. Ooh, that's a gift and a very late Chill to the Grave. Okay, so fairly weak pack. Odric, don't go out of your way to take Odric. He's not very strong. There were a lot of complaints on Reddit that Odric was kind of like a flagship unit of the set, and he's kind of a dud. And I could see that. He's not the most powerful of abilities, but if you're playing Boros, he's fine, right? 3/3s for 3s are always fine. If he comes down and generates a single blood token, then that's a pretty fantastic deal. But here, I'm just going to go with the Blood Fountain. We're pretty stacked on 3s already, so I don't think that we need to be taking like Binding Geists. And given the way that last pack went, like if we picked up another Stitched Assistant, I wouldn't be surprised, and I don't even know if we would want to play it. So it's fine. Which one are you? Alright, exile a creature card from your graveyard. Put a 1/1 counter on Patchwork Crawler, and he has all the activated abilities of all creatures he exiled. So I don't think we're going to have too many. I'm not sure how that works with Persistent Specimen. It probably doesn't, right? Since this specifically says its name on it. I don't think we have any activated abilities. Okay, so you're just going to be a big do nothing. All right, easy enough to look away from that. I wouldn't be opposed to have Gluttonous Guest in this deck, and I also would not be surprised if Gluttonous Guest is actually just better than Runo Stromkirk. The generating the blood token and the incidental health are all very strong, but we don't have to take it there. The Wretched Throng is good. We got our third Wretched Throng. My understanding with Wretched Throng at this point as well is it's currently bugged and you can't draft more than 4 copies. So I don't think that's gonna show up to be relevant here, but that's something to keep in mind that you currently can't draft a 5th copy of Wretched Throng. I think I saw that on Reddit in the past day or two. But here, nothing for us. We'll just take the Evolving Wilds, fix our mana a little bit. We talked about wanting to pick up something like Cruel Witness. I'm not sure if we even need to do it. We're not going to play Demonic Bargain. That's the black rare in this set. Mill 13 is a little bit too scary for me and limited. So it's coming down to the Cruel Witness and the Gluttonous Guest, and I'm really just kind of like leaning towards the Gluttonous Guest, but like I kind of want like one more big boy, and I think the Cruel Witness is going to be our big boy here. So let's go ahead and pick it up. I don't feel like that's a correct pick, but that's the one we made, so that's where we're at. With these, we'll take the Mind Leech Ghoul here. I don't want to play more than 2 Repository Scabs, and this is kind of the bread and butter cheap play in these decks. This is the first one I believe we've seen in this draft in terms of the Ghoul, and then it's just if you can play it, if you have to play it on turn 2, it's fine. You don't have to exploit anything. And then if you are getting exploits with it, it's a nice little card advantage engine. Okay, well, this is Wretched Throng number 4. I think we're wanting to go for it. There is also an Alchemist Retrieval here. I don't think we need it now that we've picked up Chill from the Grave. And so I'm just going to stack in on the Throng. It's okay, there is a Gluttonous Guest. I feel like we should be taking some amount of those, but things are coming together nicely here otherwise. There is a Cradle of Safety. I'm kind of like split on this. It's a pretty decent counterspell, right? It's kind of like a negate plus to a degree. You know, most of the time, if you're going to play negate in limited, you're going to just be targeting a, countering a removal spell. But doesn't I haven't like found myself with like high value enough creatures to where I felt like I really wanted to include it. I don't think we'll end up playing any of this. We'll just pick up the Persistent Specimen. I'm more likely to play a Specimen than another Repository Scab. There was a Lantern Bearer in that pack as well. I was kind of thinking about it, and it doesn't feel like we have a lot of units that we'd really care to throw the Flying Enchantment on, but it is quite good on both Stitched Assistant and Repository Scab. So that could have been a bit of a whoopsies as well, since these are pretty decent exploit targets, right? It's not as high valued as, say, dumping off a Wretched Throng and drawing a card, but it's not like you're losing a full card with this, right, since you still get the Disturb on the back end. Okay, be surprised if we get a playable the rest of the way. Maybe one of those Vampire Horned Turtles will show up, but I don't suspect that will be the case. Binding Geist. I don't think you're going to have a home in this deck. It doesn't look like we have a ton of 4s by the picture, but we have 3 Stitched Assistants, so I think some of those things won't be making the cut. Okay, so let me take a peek at the sideboard real quick. I'll bring the Scab in. Pretty sure we're never going to play it, but I want to just hide our sideboard for the rest of the way and not have to deal with pulling this back up. So that looks good at the start. We have 22 creatures. Okay, so that's going to be the big thing we're looking to remove. We are pretty light on spells. I would really love it if that's what I was saying when the Syncopate came up, right? I was really want to have a counter spell. I don't think we saw the one syncopate. I don't think we saw any of the counterspell that generates blood tokens. And I really, I mean, I like them anyways, just because they're all very good in this format. But when we have the repository scabs, I also like them in terms of giving us some options, right? Our as far as our like targetable cards for the repository scab, not a whole lot. We just have 4 cards we can actually target, and then only one of them is the removal spell. So it's like an expensive card draw, an expensive removal spell. I guess Chill from the Grave at least cycles, so I'm probably still just going to play both copies of this. But I could definitely see an argument for only playing one. But yeah, I want to cut out a scab. I think things like the Wanderlit Spirit are going to go. And we're going to really kind of look at ourselves as being a big kind of arch ghoul of Thraben build around. Just between having the good exploits between the assistants, the scab, and the scab number 2, and then using the Wretched Throng as our sacrifice target, we should hopefully be able to get like a bunch of card advantage out of this thing, should we be able to get it on the board. So I'm really looking more towards the zombie-based sacrifice targets. So I'm going to hang on to all the Wretched Throngs. I'm going to hang on to the Dissenter. The Persistent Specimen is the one that we're going to be looking to get rid of. So I think we can move him out. Probably just move both of them out. I want to hang on to the Lantern Bearer. Again, this is going to be quite good with these stitched assistants and the scabs. I think the Wanderlit Spirit will go. Where are we at? We're at 18 creatures. Taking out 2 more would get us to 16. It's like we've got this Runo Stromkirk. I don't want to take him out, but he's just a flying horn turtle here today. He's not going to do anything. I'm really not that interested in it. But the thing that's kind of like worrying me now is like if we take out this Cruel Witness, because that's what like looks to me to be the next card to take out. It's just like we have a very tough time winning games. Like I'm not super interested in the Cruel Witness in terms of its mill ability is going to be kind of tough for us to pull off because we're kind of spell light here. Like I would kind of prefer to have like 1 or 2 more spells, but I think we need it as this kind of a game winner. I'm kind of bringing myself back to this repository scab. It's like, what if we take out 1 scab because he's going to be pretty tough to activate here, and then take out the Runo Stromkirk. So our deck would look like this. I think that's okay. This is a deck I'm not really excited about. I feel like we're like 1 or 2 cards away from being like really powerful. Like if we could replace the Skywarp Scab with a high powered blue-black card. Like I think this 3 things would make this deck look pretty good. If we could say cut Skywarp Scab for the exploit that makes your opponent sacrifice a creature. If we could cut out like just 1 more dude, probably like a Doomed Dissenter or the Lantern Bearer, and then just have like 2 more good spells, like if a counter spell and something else. It feels like this is just like a little bit light in power, but it should still be good enough to get us like 4 or 5 wins. But I think this is where we're at. We can win the game. We got some flyers. We got bunches of card advantage. Blood fountains are okay. It's like I think I would have had a pretty tough cut there if we actually had like Blood Socialite, whatever the horned turtle is that makes the blood token, as opposed to Stromkirk guy. We aren't getting any octopuses out here today. But nonetheless, I feel okay about this. Let's get to battle. Okay. Well, I think we can give it a go. So he's going to lead with Mountain, and these Gift of the Fangs are just not going to do anything. One of the problems with Gift of Fangs is if you run into the Vampire's deck, doesn't do a whole lot. Okay, I think I'm fine to let him hang out. I want to get the Mind Leech School on board. No exploit. And then do the card draw with the Stitched Assistant next turn. They might need to slow down from that point forward, though. It's just like playing the removal spells onto the Disturb cards feels kind of bad. So there's usually like at least some decent targets in there. Like they'll usually play like a a Sky Knight trainee or whatever some of these cards are. There's usually some training cards in there. This guy's gonna die. This thing, whenever he trains, he exiles a creature. And we're not dealing with that. Pretty bonkers, dude. But this is still fine, right? If, say, we next turn either get to drop Cruel Witness or we get to Gift of the Fangs and Stitched Assistant, it's not that bad. Braincomber is not something I wanted to see hit the board, but we're still managing. I think I'm willing to offer up the trade here. I don't think he wants to take it. I don't think he throws his Braincomber in front of things too frequently here. And so it's not like we were going to be missing out on one of our exploitable targets. Bro's got all the rares. We're playing rares like Stromkirk guy. Okay. Do we have 2 creatures in here yet? Let's go full value here. I can add the Throng. Then we're gonna have to start blocking this stuff. Is he gonna have the Syncopate? Yeah. It's not the end of the world, I guess. His only good attack here is the 1/1, and we can block his infantry now if we want. The Wretched Throng's going to shut down a lot of his attacks. Alright, well this is probably not going to be a super successful scab. Oh, interesting. Did not expect that to be happening. And a mountain. Well, it might just be because he had that lantern flare. Sacrifice the Evolving Wilds first. Alright, well, I think at this point, I think we should be able to card advantage them out. I would think that we're much better at like cycling and drawing cards and doing things like that as opposed to the Disturb deck. I have to see. Whatever his combat trick is, I'll take it. He may just be looking to put the infantry onto his Angelic Quartermaster, which is fine for me. We should hopefully be able to find a way to deal with that. Now we have this Blood Fountain Wretched Throng combo and get a lot going. It paused. I'm curious if he has like a combat trick or something in there. And we got the bounce spell for whatever... Oh, we got both bounce spells for whatever shenanigans he's looking to do with his enchantments. Discard the Wretched Throng. Okay. So, kind of the awkward spot we left ourselves in was without the Throng, we don't have any units to just be sacrificing off. But I think I'm still kind of looking at using the Diver Scab here, and then we can just Blood Fountain back 2 dudes. So trying to figure out how we ever just win this game, though. We certainly need some help with some big boys. Do we ever just sacrifice off the Entomber? I guess is the new question. I'm fine with that. We can just get him back. Alright, so we do this. I don't want him getting like too much value out of this Quartermaster, but I think we're still safe. Like, it's kind of a sucky target to return to his hand. Oh, he kept the disturb thing. Sure. Got it. The bleed dry, beautiful. How do we do this? We're not in a big hurry, but I think we can hit with like the Diver Scab. His attacks next turn still don't look very good. And then we can like bleed dry if we need to. Kind of interested in playing bleed dry on just about anything, because we're gonna want to Blood Fountain back and start using Repository Scab. Okay, so we'll fall to 7 here. Do we ever bounce one of these tokens just to prevent the damage? Because if we're wanting to like use Blood Fountain, that's going to take 4 mana away from us. Looking to say Blood Fountain, bring back Wretched Throng, and the Skywarp Scab. That's a long time. Playing the land get us anywhere? I don't think so. Right, but we're bringing back the Scab and the Throng. Well, we should probably go ahead and play the land, right? We don't have any ways to generate blood tokens at this point. Okay, there's the magic. Things are looking good now. Okay, so we'll play the Scab. I'm going to sacrifice the Wretched Throng. Want the Throng thing on top. Okay. Oh, we stacked that completely backwards. We've learned. Have we learned our lesson? No, the Throng is on top. We just had to target something. Okay. Another Throng on top. Pick up a spell. Make sure we're not going to deck ourselves. Well, and we'll call it a day. Got 7 cards left. Nice. Well done, deck. Well done. Yeah, I don't know if anyone out there noticed how much more manly I look today, even as I speak in my Taylor Swift T-shirt. Figured out how to change light switches, install a light fixture. I'm gonna be on a roll now. We bought this. The house isn't old, but it hadn't been cosmetically updated since probably the 80s. And so that's how you afford a house in Kansas City, is you get one that hasn't been cosmetically updated since the 80s. And so there's just loads of wallpaper everywhere. Pretty sure the people smoked in it from like the 60s through at least the 80s or 90s, and so a lot of shit was just brown. Getting that cleaned up. But yeah, the turns out if you want to change the faceplates on the switches, then you have like this yellowish one behind the white faceplate, and it looks like shit. So you got to go in and replace all the switches. I have managed to figure these things out. So here, this is tough. What has he done? He's got a Streaming Swarm and a Specimen. He milled a land, but I don't want to get our Archghoul syncopated. So well, let's attack and see what happens. He's never going to block our Wretched Throng, I don't believe. He is going to block it. So we miss out on a touch of value this way. We do get our guy back, but it just feels like if we play like the Archghoul and it gets syncopated, we're so far behind, especially against an opponent that is behind on a land. They did miss a land drop, right? That pause reeks of a syncopate. I thought we were on the draw this game, is why that stuck in my mind. I was busy self-promoting how awesome I am being able to do to do basic home maintenance. Yeah, okay, he seems to be behind one now. This is gonna... I don't want to think it would be like a super devastating Diver Scab, but it would be pretty good. Oh, we're getting so much value out of these Throngs. Okay, so we got one left in our deck. I'd prefer not to risk throwing it into the Syncopate. We just nailed this Gift of Fangs, though, to blast his dude. Okay, he's got a card. He's got a card. All right. That's okay, though. This is a good target for the Diver Scab now. But, I mean, I really like targeting this egg, I think. If we play the Diver Scab, sacrifice the Lantern Bearer, bounce the egg, and then he's kind of forced into blocking with his Scab. Probably has to top this thing. It's a pretty sucky target for us if he gets the flip on the egg next turn. We're going to lose our Archghoul, but I don't think, like, this game's going to be done before the card advantage ever matters. Well, I'll take it when I can get it, though. The Mountain. A lot more 3-color decks in this format. I was kind of... It was never happening in Midnight Hunt. Very rare to see that kind of thing happen. Much more common here now. So what do I want to do with this? It's like now that he's picked up a mountain, like is there a world where he has that thing that does damage? Like I would love to put the Lantern Bear on our Stitched Assistant and then just follow up with Wretched Throng. I think this is okay. Now his blocks are all booty. Got him. Alright. So yeah, a little unfortunate draw from opponent, but gave perfect game to talk about my my life experiences and learning how to install light switches. I only shocked myself once. That was pretty good. I was pretty careful about it. Whenever I was like screwing wires around and like turning off the breakers and putting the little tester in there, but then I like wired it all back in and was like shoving around the little box and shocked myself a little bit. It wasn't bad though. it was just a little one. It wasn't a big one. And I might be wrong in the matter, but I didn't think shocking yourself was that bad unless it like ran across your heart. And so I just this was just a little one-hander. It's a little one-hander. It was all right. But here, I think we want to go with the Entomber. We're not getting to do too much with our hand here anyways. But if we draw a swamp and we're able to play a card and Gift of the Fangs, it would be nice. Here, I'm willing to trade our Entomber for a whatever the removal spell is called. Or a combat trick. Now we've got real good blocks on this infantry. He thought about it. It's like, ooh, maybe. All right, not a super high value target. Maybe we should have saved that Gift of the Fangs for a thing that has like flying, like a little flying training thing, but it's okay. Do we discard Repository Scab? I mean, it doesn't really do anything here, but it does let us, like, we can just play it next turn onto the Throng. Then we can look to discard a new Throng to the Scab. None of this sounds particularly exciting. I don't know if it's good or bad that he hasn't flashed back the Drog Skull yet. He's going to follow up with another unit here, I guess. Okay. That would have been a much better target for a Gift of the Fangs. Alright, to combat, let's tap this thing. You were tapped, Shield Basher. Another land, eh. Take 4. Alright, Wretched Throngs, welcome back to my hand. Not not superb targets, but we're making the best of what we got. I think we still have one Wretched Throng left in our deck. We got two left in our deck. Okay. So we just want to play it all? I think I'm okay with that. Oh, we don't have all the blue manas to play it all. We got the 7 mana in total, but we aren't playing. We aren't playing Eternal here today. That's okay. Like I said, the Lantern Bearer is a reasonable discard to the Entomber. Then we can make a big flyer next turn. Doesn't seem quite relevant. Why is he adding this? Is he just not attacking? That would be awesome. Okay. I'll take the bait. This is where the combat trick comes down. It on the creature token. Interesting. More land. Ugh. This is our last one. I kind of want to hang on to this. Oh, cool. We got a Wolf Strike just to discard to the Entomber. I mean, the Lantern Bear onto the Mind Leech Ghoul to try and shut down the Spirit doesn't seem that interesting. I think I just want a Lantern Bear onto the Entomber so we have a good block with it next turn. Yeah, I'd like to have that Gift of the Fangs back. I'm going to have to kind of get in my head that there's always this really tough to deal with Shield Basher that we need the Gift of the Fangs for. Fuck. So I'm immediately start highlighting my dudes, and I was like, shit, that's never good. That's never good. 7 fall to 4. I'm gonna block the Disciple with the Ghoul. We just have to have something go right. We'll take that one off the board. Bleed Dry is going a little bit right. we're not completely dead here. Mm-hmm. Don't think we have any draws to get ourselves out of this, but maybe we'll draw that that thing that lets us the rare we didn't take that AoEs the board with 2 cost or less cards. All right, fine, my man. Yeah, other exciting things in the world. Chiefs won their football game yesterday. They looked much better. I know it was just against the Raiders, but I think we lost to the Raiders earlier in the season. But the defense looked much better. I was talking a couple weeks ago. I feel like the defense is going to start to it has no business being the worst defense in the league, but starting off the season with Chris Jones and Frank Clark being hurt, and then Tyrann Mathieu got COVID. I'm sure that takes more than 1 week to recover from, especially when you're a defensive back. And they had their fit of Daniel Sorensen problems that they've seemed to have decided to finally quit playing him. And so I think they looked good. Picked up Melvin Ingram. They lets them move Chris Jones from being a defensive end to on the inside. They looked very, very nice last night. So we'll see. We'll see. My fantasy teams did not look nice. Fantasy was brutal. This is the week I was like really hype about playing all of what's his name? Dearness Johnson, Mark Ingram, and Daryl Williams from the Chiefs, and that all worked well. But I also did a lot of playing Russell Wilson, which did not did not go well. My wide receivers and quarterbacks this week combined for like 15 points in each league. I think Russell Wilson put up like 7. In one league, I had Russell Wilson and DK Metcalf, and then that was awful. I had in the tight end position this week, I played Hawkinson in one league for a goose egg, and then we also played Waller for a 4-point effort. So the team second string running back did extremely well, and then the rest of my team did not. Alrighty, well, back to this one. This kind of sucks. I think we don't have to Gift of the Fangs this Griff Rider this turn, because it's not going to grow like fast enough for that to be scary. But I think we have to start by just getting rid of this Cruel Witness and seeing if we hit a land. Okay, we did. So it gets a little better. So buy some time. We got to keep in mind the quality of units that we're hitting with those Gift of the Fangs. And I think the Flyers are good enough, especially when they have training. Now dude's down to 1 card. So if we can buy some time and get these chains of units going together, I'm going to feel much better about this. Take the Throng. Not want you. Want to find a land. Didn't find it. That's not a land either. But I think we're still looking okay. I would think that he's going to like Traveling Minister, the Drogskull Infantry, and hit with the Infantry and the Apprentice Sharpshooter. We'd get a trade on the Infantry if they do that. Otherwise, I mean, I guess he gets in for the same amount of damage without losing the Infantry if he just targets the Sharpshooter. But, okay. Ugh. Alright, well, we can bleed dry Catilda whenever it comes down to that. I think this is still okay. We can get Throng down. Let's Gift of the Fangs over here. We just need time. We're still like really healthy. Ooh, he's going big on Catilda. Okay, okay. I mean, it does let him get bigger trainings in, but we're gonna get the good bleed dry. Okay, so we take a hit. Then things will start to turn around. Distracting Geist is a bit awkward. Oh, I thought it tapped when it came into play. So do we want to block with the Throng to prevent the damage here? We have like one more turn. I think we can take this 3. Oh, he got a free counter on us, though. We should have killed Catilda first. kind of feel like we should have just sacrificed off the Entomber here. Like, we don't need the card advantage at this point. Now I'm looking, we have to, like, chill to the grave this sharpshooter. And he can, if he wants to attack with the Geist, we're going to have a good block on it. Let's see what he taps. Okay, perfect. Oh, hang on, we messed that up a bit. I meant to chill to the grave that Apprentice Sharpshooter. Not really amped about losing our bounce spell against the Disturbed deck. That was a bit sloppy. This Taxidermist is going to flip soon as well. So much garbage. Ugh. Well, I guess with that collection of land, it's not looking hot. Not looking hot. Not really the the point in the game when you can draw 3 land in a row. Oh, we're dead. Okay. All right, down to the two loss bracket. I mean, this deck's fine enough. I think we can churn out a couple more wins. I certainly don't think that this is the 7 winner of a deck, but I think a 2 win out of this would be a bit of a low roll. Against Ucker. Let's see, what do we got? It's not very strong, but I think we're going to keep it. This isn't like a super aggressive format. I think the 4 land hands wise still don't feel really good about them. Feel at least a little bit better in this one than they did in Midnight Hunt. Dude's going to be bringing the card advantages on us. Let's see how many cards he gets to draw. Looks like the answer to that is 0. Interesting. Not real sure what his angle is here. But I want to get the Throng down. We're going to start playing this Chill to the Grave. I mean, tapping something isn't that exciting, but we're at least getting like these card advantage chains going. See if this actually just gets like syncopated. Okay, got 1 Throng left in the deck. The top card, kind of want to draw the bounce spell. Opponent just like doesn't have anything going on. Let's leave it on top. Hopefully we don't shuffle it away. And the land has been found. We got one Throng left. Hope that confused me with the end turn thing popping up. It's like I'm tempted to just sacrifice off this Entomber. It's not doing anything this game. These Throngs are much more aggressive. Go for a Lantern Bearer as we discard our, or as we sacrifice off our Looter. We can pick up the Lantern Bearer. Okay, this guy's growing on me. It's like I really shit on Sawblade Singer quite a bit. It just seems like it's only ever good against me. But I don't know. Maybe there's enough targets to where it's okay. It's like I don't want to be. I guess like spending 4 mana on a 4/3 and killing a blood token is okay. So I need to give that guy a little bit more respect, I guess. Let's see. Sure. Can't find any. Top. Put the island in the graveyard. It's the 3rd one in a row we've hit. Yeah, I think hopefully we can just tempo them out the rest of the way. He's got his 4th color of mana. I wonder what kind of greedy ass shit you trying to do, my man. Where you're keeping a 2-land hand in your 4-color deck, my man. All right, we're lethal. Boom. Boom goes the dynamite. I'm curious if any of the youngsters familiar with Boom Goes the Dynamite, one of the premier memes from my college days in the mid 2000s. I think it might resonate with a few of the viewers. I think I'm not real hype and stuff. A lot of the youngsters don't enjoy my content, which I'm completely fine with. But I think we got an older crowd around here, so they may they may be familiar with Boom Goes the Dynamite. They'd probably be familiar with everything, just sitting there remembering the first light switch they changed, and then bringing up the high quality memes from 2005. That's what people come here for. It's not 20-year-old memes. It's my beautiful voice, my shitty mathematics, and mediocre gameplay. Alrighty, let's send this one back. We aren't casting any of these spells. It's a little bit better. I think we just get rid of Cruel Witness. Well, you get rid of the retrieval. We're not going to make any kind of like tempo play with that retrieval. And so I can see a world where, if we draw perfect and hit a 2-drop and a land, and then get to curve like 2 Stitched Assistant, Cruel Witness, that's pretty exciting. But like, there's no early game play where we're like, shit, yeah, I want to bounce one of their dudes. Nothing has gone right if our play is to come in and try and bounce something. So I think it's fine. And then Bleed Dry, it's just too premium, I think. Especially given that it's our only removal spell and we have the dudes to bring them back. Just having the high quality spell early seems pretty nice. All right, it's kind of unfortunate. It feels like, at least given the way that they've played, this tends to be like the black-red control deck, kind of like control vampires, where you just dirtle around and eventually win the game because everyone's drawn 10 land, but you've discarded 4 of yours to blood tokens, and they're able to just get super far ahead in those terms. That thing is not awesome for us, is it? When you discard 1 or more cards, create a zombie. Gotcha. Only once a turn, though. See if he starts dropping his horned turtles. He's dropping his bleed dries. Okay. Yeah, not real confident in this game. That's not good. Well, what have you drawn? 7 land and four spells. Does he ever trade the Ballista Watcher for our Stitched Assistant? Maybe. All right, we're still bringing the heat. About to get our Wretched Throng stacking up. It's got to do something. I mean, we're like 1 flyer away from running away with this. There we go. There's this. Don't say he's got to do something. Then they're going to come and drop mythics on you. It just kills a creature. But ain't nothing wrong with that Flame Tongue Kavu. Okay, so I mean, hopefully we'll at least get like a block with the Throng. We'll get to pick one up and then discard it next turn. I think that, I mean, there's potential for that. Yep, you got the big boys. Let's actually hang on to the Doomed Dissenter. I think if we're ever going to win, it's because we got something to go right with going wide. So it's like we can add the Dissenter. Beat with the Lantern Bearer. See if we draw that Chill to the Grave or something. There's our bounce spell. But right, I could see us potentially doing something here. The idea with this is if we get to say like block, he attacks with everything, we get to block the Pyre spawn with the Dissenter, and then we have this probable 2 points of damage next turn. Okay. So, I mean, we're getting to sacrifice off a Lantern Bearer, which can be pretty juicy if things go well. Okay, what do we got? We drew land. Looking at our squad, we can return with the Blood Fountain. It's looking like we could bring back some like Wretched Throngs. We can actually get 2 units on the board here and do kind of the same thing that we did last turn. I picked up Ballista Watcher. So I mean, we can say, oh, this is where it doesn't work, is we have to sacrifice the Blood Fountain as well. So let's see. That's 6 mana. So we can return Lantern Bearer though. So let's see. Here's how we don't die. We do this. Blue, black, retrieval, return, Gargantua. Now, we can take 4 from the Desecrator. So we can attack with everything here. Now, we can do 1, 2, 3, 4, Blood Fountain. We get to return Lantern Bearer and I guess Wretched Throng. I don't think this one matters. Now we get to drop Lantern Bearer. Now, if he does some kind of weird shit, we can still win the game, right? Right? We have the Lantern Bearer block onto Pyre Spawn. The Desecrator won't kill us. Assuming the Lantern Bearer dies here, we can get flying to something. And maybe, I don't know, draw Chill to the Grave or something. Oh, shit. He's just gonna nug us. Fuck. I was so into that. I thought we had the option to pick up like a 1-outer. Oh, damn. Alright, well, we took this one to 3 wins. I guess that's kind of where I thought. I thought this would be like a 3 or 4. I thought if we high rolled a bit, we might take it up to 5. But let's pull it up. We'll talk about it just a little bit more. Okay, so yeah, I mean, at least with that one, it wasn't a big 7 winner, but I think it gives you a pretty good insight into the exploit deck and what works and what doesn't. And in my opinion, there's kind of it plays quite a bit like it would have been a Slayer's deck in Runeterra for those of you that come from Runeterra land with me. In terms of, it's kind of finding a balance between having enough stuff to sacrifice and then having enough payoff for the sacrifice cards. And so in Runeterra, where things would go bad were, say you're trying to stack Hapless Aristocrats, you couldn't do it, then you would have this handful of like Spirit Leeches and whatever the sacrifice cards are. It's been too late. And you couldn't actually play the sacrifice cards because you didn't have the cheap cards to go along with it. And that's ultimately not as disastrous in Magic, since if we're playing cards like Mind Leech Ghoul, it's not exciting as a 2/2 for 2, but it's still playable. If we're playing, the same thing goes throughout the whole curve, right? Stitched Assistant is a 3/2 for 3. Not a great deal, but if you have to do it, it's fine. Repository Scab is actually on price. Diver Scab kind of on price if you want to look at it that way. Not really, but but I still think we need to kind of like tier this off as to where you have your like really high valued exploits, which I think to just be, at least in the common space, just be the 5-cost one that makes your opponent sacrifice a dude. Beyond that, I think the importance goes to your sacrifice outlets. The big one I think is Wretched Throng. The Doomed Dissenter will be better in specific decks. I think if you have a bunch of the blue-black exploit gold card, the uncommon that generates zombies when you exploit, and then if you pick up some of the like highly specific ones Like if you get the rare, the Headless Horseman or something, that when you sacrifice a dude, you make a zombie, or if you pick up like multiples of Archghoul of Thraben, then you can start to shove, Doom Dissenter a little bit higher than perhaps Wretched Throng. But I think at the end of the day, the Wretched Throng is like a little bit more powerful, but it's both slower and it is a big mana sink, and so it's much easier to just say like drop a Doom Dissenter and then just kind of clog up the board for a while. But I think most of the time you're A, not going to have a choice, and B, it doesn't matter that much. Just like if this deck was like 2 Wretched Throng and 3 Doom Dissenters, I think it would still play out almost exactly the same. But I do still put the edge towards Wretched Throng. The only flip side of these is if you have 1 Throng, then it's not nearly as good. If you don't have the options to draw 1 or to chain any of them, then it certainly really plummets in value. So you probably have to like place the value higher on the Throng, just so you don't find yourself in that position. Then I guess the rest of the other flip sides, flip flop, you snip snap it all the time. Blue isn't that great in terms of the Wretched Throng, and so blue green doesn't want it, blue red doesn't want it, blue white doesn't want it. It's only blue black. Whereas with the Doom Dissenter, it's fine in the various decks. It wants to be in blue black, but if you have Doom Dissenter in your black white deck, it can be fine, right? If you need a human for your resistance fighters or whatever it is that draws cards, then you got it. But nonetheless, that's probably a little way too in depth for the way I think of these things. I think the big thing is you want the 5-cost dude that makes him sacrifice an opponent. After that, you need to place your emphasis on the sacrifice outlets, being Wretched Throng and Doom Dissenter, and then after those, you can start placing your emphasis on the individual exploit cards, whether or not it's the Stitched Assistant, the Repository Scab, Diver Scab, whatever. So that's kind of thing number one. I think the other place where we ran into problems here, where we didn't have a good way to end the game, which the 5/4 your opponent sacrifices a card is kind of the premier way to do it. And so in terms of this deck, I would be really happy if we weren't playing like Skyward Scab and we weren't playing the Cruel Witness, and then we just had like 2 of that sacrifice thing. And then if we had the sacrifice thing, you could even look to just not play Diver Scab. But I think that was problem number 1. We didn't have what I think to be the best exploit card in the common space. And then problem number 2 was our spells were a bit off, right? Gift of the Fangs doesn't play fantastically with the likes of Repository Scab. And so I'm not saying I was upset that we have Gift of the Fangs. It certainly fills a role, and I'm glad that we did have them. But where that is going is I would really like to A, have a counter spell, and B, have another kind of like catch-all removal. Like if we had 2 Bleed Dries, that would be great, but that's kind of a big ask. But if we had, say, like a Bleed Dry and the 6-cost spell that kills anything and makes a couple blood tokens, I would feel a lot better about how this played out. And so, I think our deck, it came together fine. We just didn't see a handful of the cards that we really want that would push this over the edge, and it kind of landed where I expected it to. And so, let's roll down. We can take a peek at the draft itself. Runo Stromkirk. I concede that this is not a good pick. We kind of talked about it as we started. I just kind of wanted to draft it and see how it goes. We're still early in the format and want to get, kind of a taste of the rares. And I kind of felt like this wasn't going to be any good, and that was fairly spot on. I mean, he would have been okay as, a defensive horned turtle, but it's really kind of unfortunate when you just like never have the ability to make that flip happen. I think we saw like 1 of the 6-cost things, but even at that point, we probably just don't want to play it anyways. And so I think realistically, the pick out of this pack would be the Markov Purifier. This card is really strong in the white-black deck, just being a big card draw engine. If you're able to pair the 1-cost Traveling Minister up with the Markov Purifier, and then threaten to draw a card every turn, but then usually the problem with trying to draw cards every turn is you're falling behind on board and taking some incidental damage. The life link and the life gain on the Minister really kind of make up for that, and so I think that would have been the stronger pick out of this pack, but I wanted to try the rare. Sue me, right? That's okay. And so things continued on. I think picking on the black removal here is fine. Gift of the Fangs, very strong. And then we're looking to. I don't know if things like Gluttonous Guest will table. I initially didn't rate this card very highly. It's really kind of shot up in my books. The horn turtle aspect of it, the generating the blood token, the incidental life gain for like 3 or 4 points of health off of your blood tokens is just a fantastic unit. And so I don't think this would forever table, but as we're still kind of early in the format, I think that this could. And if we go to pick 10, it did actually table here. Into pick 3, another Gift of the Fangs. A fairly weak set of cards overall. There was the Syncopate, but I think we still haven't really decided where we were at. And if we had started with, I wonder how this would have looked if we started with that white-black card. We still would have won a Gift of the Fangs, and then into pick 4. Instead of taking things like Wretched Throng, how does it look? That's a pretty weak, pretty weak pack 4 in terms of the white-black deck. You might just be taking an Adamant Will, but I think this is okay. And so again, as we kind of talked, the sacrifice outlets feel a little bit more important than the taking of the exploit cards. We would never be upset at the end of the day if our deck didn't have any repository scabs, but we would be upset if it didn't have enough sacrifice things. And so the Throng, I think, is definitely better than the Scab. And then I'm not a huge fan of Lunar Rejection. And then Scattered Thoughts is kind of, it's fine. But there's so much card advantage in this format, so much cycle with the blood tokens, I don't feel like it's supremely necessary. Okay, then we took our kind of flyer pick in the Traveling Minister. Didn't pan out here, but we ended up with like 8 Skywarp Scabs, and we didn't want to play Unhallowed Phalanx, and so I still think this was okay. So if we did end up landing into white-black, right? So if that, I mean, this would have looked really fantastic if we started with the white-black card. So we had the white-black card, the 2 Gift of the Fangs, and then the Traveling Minister. I don't think white seems super open the rest of the way. I think we just opened some big packs here, but those are the kind of things that I haven't been able to pick up yet on in Crimson Vow. But I'm starting to figure these things out. On to the next ones. In terms of white-black, there's the Vampire Slayer, which is meh. We could have taken the Dreadlight Monstrosity as a means to activate our Runo Stromkirk, but this is all a pretty big ask. I don't feel very good about any of that. The Entomber over the Scab is fine. More Scabs showing up. Here, I don't like this Wanderlit Spirit. We probably should have just taken the Gluttonous Guest over the Spirit. We're never aggressive enough to really want these things. These play fine in blue-white. They don't really belong in the exploit deck. They're just a little bit too aggressively oriented. We should have taken the Guest there. More Scabs. All right, not a bad pack 1. Pack 2. Just the beginning of pack 2 wasn't very strong. Overall, these cards were all pretty weak. Nothing too strong there. We picked up our first Bleed Dry in pack 2. There's not any common I would take over Bleed Dry in this pack. Could have looked again to the Monstrosity or the Desperate Farmer. Not really interested in any of that. And at this point, we haven't popped off on our Throngs, right? I believe we only have 1 Wretched Throng at this point. We ended up with 4. But at this point, we definitely need to make sure we have enough sacrifice stuff. Archghoul is definitely on theme and strong. Diver Scab is fine. Nothing else worth taking. Stitched Assistant. This pack, at the end of the day, I probably would have rather had Chill to the Grave, but I think this was our first Stitch Assistant as well. So it's kind of a problem not having enough of the units, but Throng shows up, more assistance. Good. I think that was all pretty straightforward. And then in pack 3, another really weak open of a pack. The Blood Fountain was kind of my big pickup over the weekend. I'd seen people playing Blood Fountain and it seemed kind of meh, but I have ultimately been pretty happy with this. This is a quite a powerful card. Not something you want to be playing like 3 and 4 and 5 copies of by any means, but I don't think you'll ever be upset to have 1. We pick up the Wretched Throng. But yeah, we just, our deck was kind of like lacking the removal, and especially when the exploit removal guy doubles up as a game ender and a removal spell, and we have ways to bringing back from our graveyard and recast it. Just weren't able to get that big piece of the deck together. But nonetheless, pretty strong. Pretty strong. I was happy with how this went. We didn't pull off a 7 winner by any means, but I think this is a pretty good primer into the exploit deck, and then we'll hopefully turn these into 7 winners into the immediate future. Okay, so yeah, as we wrap up, I don't think I've opened up any packs since since the last video I did. Looks like we have a booster box of Crimson Vow hanging out here. So let's see what we get. Just take a quick peek. Not interested in the Gambit. I haven't seen anything interesting in terms of blue-red in this format. It seems pretty tough to get together. Much more challenging than in the previous set, but I don't know. As I think the problem with blue-red in this format is, like, I keep wanting to call it Is It Staticaster, but whatever it was in the previous set to where you tap it to deal damage and then it untaps when you play a spell. Now you just have all these cards that deal damage when you play a spell, but it's very tough to just get the chains of them going, and they're all very understated. And so, I don't know. Maybe someone's been able to assemble it, but not us. Dollhouse of Horrors isn't playable. Draw a card, exile it from your hand. I think I've seen this before. You can pay mana and flip it. He turns into an enchantment. You can start playing extra cards every turn. Whatever. Land. El-Tuprid Loner is quite good. Not too much to say about him. Some of these are garbagey. Wedding Announcement's kind of slow. 4/4s for 4 are always playable. What's this? At the beginning of combat on your turn, a wolf or werewolf gets 2/2. When an opponent casts their second spell each turn, create a 2/2 green wolf token. Why wasn't this in the werewolf set? Like, that's been like what really blew my mind between Crimson Vow and Midnight Hunt is in Crimson Vow, like, every color combination has a rare like a rare vampire in it, and it's like really obvious that that's kind of like what's going on. But there was the cycle of werewolves in the werewolf set, but it was like the black one was Graveyard Trespasser and the blue one was like Seafair Looter, and like outside of green red it was just like so like not obvious that it was actually the werewolf set, as to where at this set you're just like, oh shit, I just opened Stromkirk, blue black guy. It's a vampire. It's doing vampire stuff, and it's just you can't look at Midnight Hunt and be like, oh, this is a werewolf set. And things like Howling Moon would have really kind of like pushed it to that, to being like, oh, the wolves and werewolves are here. What this set is doing, but I don't know. I'm not a designer. It's not my strong suit. Anyways, moving on. Enters the battlefield with 2 1/1 counters on it for each non-token human you control. Very powerful. Just so many +1/+1 counter requirement cards that just having him come down as a 3/3 and activating your cards is pretty powerful. Oh, I meant to open 10. We had quite a bit of the Beekeeper over the weekend. We got Hallbreaker Horror. That's playable. 7 mana is certainly doable in this format. So I won't say that he's not playable. There's a battlefield with a +1/+1. You have an expensive. Put more counters on it. Very powerful. Not a human, but the +1/+1 cards don't usually care if it's a human. I think there's the uncommon that draws cards when you put on +1/+1 counters. Those have to go to humans, but a lot of them don't matter. The Mimic, absolutely bonkers if you come up with it. Assuming Tides, whatever. Voice of the Blessed, also extremely, extremely powerful. And what the curve of that 1-cost guy that taps to gain a life into Voice of the Blessed, just absolutely bonkers strong. Voldaren Estate, quite good as well. Every deck can play Voldaren Estate. Like, I think this is one of these cards as to where you might want to consider playing 18 land and then just having the estate be out here to generate the blood tokens. I'm not exactly sure where it stands. Like, your aggro, like, werewolf deck isn't, your aggro human deck isn't going to want to do that, but like the deck we were just playing might stop and consider adding in Voldaren Estate. I don't think I've seen this either. 6/6 for 6 menace. When it deals damage, create that many blood tokens. Wow. And it just pings stuff for mana. Very, very powerful. Great game ender there. Okay, open 10. What else do we got? Concealing curtains are fine. It's a blocker, and it easily generates value. What's this? As long as you control 7 permanents, creatures you control get flying vigilance. When you cast an enchantment spell, create a dude. Seems powerful enough if you're playing Disturb. Training guy is quite strong. Dream Shackle Geist I was a big fan of. Just this tap ability or lock down a unit. Something blue doesn't usually get access to outside of spells. Quite strong. What is this? Put a creature from your hand onto the battlefield if it's a wolf. Untap it. Interesting. We saw the Crawler in our draft, another Hamlet Vanguard, and some land. All right. Down to the stretch right here at the end. What do we got? Dollhouse of Horrors is garbage. Maybe there's a constructed use for that. It has no business in limited. Super click that exploit. The exploit counterspell is very strong. Headless Rider. This is the card we were talking about in the wrap up, where you might want to consider your Wretched Throng collection of cards if you come across something like Headless Rider. Again, probably won't make that much difference. You don't get too much say in the matter of what you pick up, but he's quite strong. When this or another non-token dies, make a blood token. When you create a blood token, if you have a bunch of them, flip. Very strong. Just a 2/1 flyer for 2 is good. With all this text about creating blood tokens is great, and then flip ability is very, very strong in that thing. I haven't seen that before either. I'm familiar with all the commons, I assure you. It's just some of these rares I'm not familiar with. The Gatekeeper, I have got to play this. I think that might have been in our last video. He was quite good, especially when you spike like a creature. So you're out here being all aggressive, and then your opponent's falling behind on board, and they have to add creatures to catch back up, and then the creatures are dealing damage to it. It was pretty good. He was strong. Okay. Wolf Rider, he was okay. This is like an 8-drop, but not super strong, not bad. Down to the last 2. Curse of Hospitality. I haven't seen a deck that wants it. And our last one. What do we got? The Faithbound Judge. You got a lot of text on you. Defender Flying Vigilance for 3. At the beginning of your upkeep, if he has 2 or fewer judgment counters on it, put a counter on it. If he has 3 or more counters on it, he can attack. Serviceable. But alrighty, that is going to do it for us today. Again, we are doing Twitch on the weekends now. If you're new to us here with the Crimson Vow, we're doing the YouTube videos and releasing those on Tuesday to Friday, and then on Saturday and Sunday we're streaming from 9 a.m. to noon Central Time. But this week we are doing a special stream on Friday because I took off work for the release of Crimson Vow, which was last week. But nonetheless, that won't stop us from streaming. We will be here on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday this week. But yeah, that's going to do it for us today. I hope you learned how to exploit your zombies a little bit better. You maybe learned a thing or two along the way. Had a good time watching. This is Bust, and we thank you for being here.